Hello and welcome to the first laser session of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation Summit 2020. We're picking up on the topic of policy, and this time we're delving into the perspective of public policy initiatives that can enable a circular economy to scale in Latin America. Now, some of us are very familiar with Latin America and others not so. So, just a few facts to transport us to the region that we're exploring. Latin America comprises of more than 20 countries and is home to over 600 million people. The region has 6 megacities spread across it, and more than 80% of the population lives in cities. And it's not just home to people. Latin America is also home to 70% of the planet's biodiversity and is rich in resources. Commodities such as mining, agriculture, as well as tourism have played a key part in the region's economy. And as elsewhere, the pandemic has brought considerable health and economic shocks. So we all have the same picture in mind now. And what we want to unpack today is what are the particular opportunities and challenges that a circular economy uptake can bring in Latin America. And how policymakers acting on this, how are they taking a role in this transition? To do this, I'm really delighted to be joined by Adriana Zacarias from the UN Environment Programme in Latin America, Guillermo Gonzalez, Chief of the Circular Economy Office in the Ministry of Environment of Chile, Herman Stutznegger, Senior Specialist from the Inter-American Development Bank, and Gonzalo Munoz, High-Level Champion of COP25 and the co-founder of Latin American business Triciclos. Hello and welcome, everybody. It's really great to have you here all the way from Latin America. Adriana, I want to start with you because you work with governments right across the region. So I'm really interested to know if you've seen trends or particular interest areas emerging around the topic of circular economy policy making in the region.
Thank you, Miranda. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation, and let me extend a big congratulations to Ellen MacArthur Foundation for the 10th anniversary. Congratulations for all this excellent work you are doing in pushing forward the agenda of circular economy. So going back to the region, and thanks for those facts. We are very happy to see that every time more and more there is more interest from governments in pursuing policies towards circular economy. And I will say not only governments, also we see this in private sector, academia, NGOs. According to a mapping of policy initiatives on circular economy that the Konrad Adenauer Foundation carried out, over 20 countries in our region, we have 33 countries to be precise, but 20 of these countries have already at least one initiative on circular economy. So this is good news. And Miranda, we have champions countries, one of them sitting here in this panel, Chile, of course, with the roadmap on circular economy. Guillermo will talk about that. But Colombia has already a national strategy on circular economy. Peru is developing a roadmap to transform the industry sector into a circular economy. Mexico has a national agreement for the new plastics economy. Ecuador is developing a white book on circular economy. And the list goes longer. We have 11 countries that are currently developing national roadmaps with the support of the Climate Technology Central Network, CTCN, and UNIDO and UNEP support, among them Costa Rica, República Dominicana, and Brazil. I think your questions on the trends, I would like to highlight something very important. What is very good is that this term is talking also to other ministries, not only ministries of environment. So it's very encouraging to see now the interest of the Ministry of Finance, Trade, Commerce, Industry, that are getting engaged and bringing also as a key role the private sector. So I will stop here for the first question.
No, it's great. And I'm so glad you gave us that list because I think there were a couple of countries you listed that weren't even on top of my mind. So in the development of these circular economy plans, are they all taking the same approach? And would you say the balance is more, in my experience, sometimes it starts with the downstream. So how optimistic are you that actually some of the policy is starting to look at what it can do to incentivize upstream changes? And that's what Andrew talked about earlier about business models and design changes. Is that starting to be part of the policy focus in Latin America?
I think so, and my colleagues in the panel might reinforce this. What I've seen is at the beginning, the circular economy was understood as recycling and just downstream looking at waste. But you can see more and more how countries are starting to put this, for example, top on the climate change agenda. How can they reduce emissions? In Chile, for example, first country that has included circular economy in the NDCs. You see Peru that is putting this in the core of the fishery sector, for example, and more looking at the industry. So I think now they are going more to really look at the systemic change that we have. Priorities are different. Countries are starting according to the key priority economic sectors. Sectors that we see common interest will be like cities, as you say, very important, the building and construction sector. Plastics, Pacific Alliance is very strong on this, and with the support of the BID, they are moving along this agenda. Food, of course, and more with the pandemic is becoming a key priority, and of course, digital technology, electronics.
Okay, so you're starting to give us a bit of a glimpse of the different sectors that are coming into focus in Latin America. I'm going to move on to Guillermo in just a second, because as you said, he's actually working on one of these strategies. But before we do, are you optimistic or pessimistic about the impact of the pandemic? There's a lot for governments to do now as a result of the pandemic. Is it shifting attention away from the circular economy, or actually are the benefits of a circular economy understood as being part of the way of rebuilding post the pandemic?
I would say, Miranda, the coin is in the air. I heard the panel this morning saying we cannot lose and waste this opportunity. I think some countries are seeing this as a key priority or key part of the solution for the economic recovery. Others might think, we cannot afford that now. We need to focus on job generation. Our message here is circular economy is part of the solution and needs to be part of the recovery plan. We have studies of ILO that are indicating circular economy could generate 6 million jobs in Latin America and the Caribbean. And this is very important. I prefer to be optimistic, and I think some countries will be inspired for the key champions we have here, and hopefully also by the European New Green Deal.
Great. And I'm glad you touched on the issue of jobs, because actually that always comes up as a really important motivation for governments to adopt a circular economy approach. And there's lots of studies about will it be a job growth generator or will there be job losses? And of course it's a transition, but I'm glad you brought that up, and it's good to hear a figure about positive estimates around circular economy and jobs. Guillermo, you're working on a circular economy strategy for Chile right now. I'd love to know a bit more about why Chile has picked up the circular economy as a framework for actually taking the economy forward. Can you tell us a bit about why it resonates in Chile?
Good afternoon, Miranda. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. So I would say that when we think about the roadmap, we're in the very process of constructing, of developing right now. It's not really the starting point of our circular economy journey, I would say. It's more of something that came up after we already did some steps. We've been working very intensively around several different sectorial issues. For instance, we're in the very process of implementing our extended producer responsibility law, where we're regulating several different products, including packaging, for example. We've been working around organic or food waste. We've been working on a strategy on the built environment, when we've been working very, very heavily, and also there with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation on the on a plastics agenda, right? And what we saw as we were working along all these different areas and issues is that there are some cross-cutting problems, cross-cutting challenges that we need to face more strategically. And that's what led us to embark on this process of generating a circular economy roadmap, of convening a group of 33 organizations that are with whom we are working together. We started intensively in the month of May, and we will have a draft roadmap by November. And that really led us to work with them, give it a holistic view, and really take many of these issues that came up to a higher level, a higher political level, a higher strategic level, and that's what we're doing right now in this process.
Great. And does that resonate with the point that Adriana made about you're in the Ministry of Environment, and that is often what we see, that is one of the driving ministries of this. In Chile, are other ministries also coming into this now?
Sure, that's a very good point. And what I can tell you there is that we have 33 organizations that comprise this strategic committee, but then we have an executive committee where there's 4 organizations. So it's the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Economy, we have the Innovation Agency, which is Corfo, and we have another agency dedicated to private-public voluntary partnerships. And so this is an agenda that goes well beyond the environmental agenda. It's really a competitive agenda as well at the same time.
And you mentioned in your first answer extended producer responsibility, which is one of the policy tools that actually there's a lot of focus on, and there are many. It can apply to many different materials, different products. It's one tool. Investment, Joe mentioned it in the introduction, how much governments have been investing recently. Are you looking at investment in certain areas in order to support circular economy in Chile?
Sure. I think that what's really good and interesting about the extended producer responsibility scheme is that it really drives investment in the right direction, right? What we see there is that we can give really good signals to investors in terms of where the country is heading to. For instance, when we think about recycling or EPR for packaging, what we see there is that we have some recycling targets that will multiply by a factor of 5 our current recycling targets over a period of 12 years. So you give a long-term view to investors so that they can really see where the opportunities will be, and they can decide to make investments that they know will be closely related to these kind of policies. The other interesting things there related to innovation and investment has to do with the fact that, for instance, in our EPR for packaging, again, we are taking some of the best practices from developed nations. And for instance, what we have there is that we're introducing the eco-modulation of the fees, so that as a way to also incentivize investment in the use of new types of packaging and in innovation into packaging that makes sure it's really recyclable, which is clearly not the case yet for many, many different products in Chile.
Okay, great. So there's also a lot through a specific policy such as EPR. It's the mechanisms of that, but it's actually also about the signals that it sends to the market and where it can direct other people to go. I'm going to continue on the topic of investment because we have Herman here. And the IDB, investment and supporting projects, providing technical capacity, that is the sort of bread and butter of the IIDB. When does circular economy come into your portfolio, and what are the kinds of areas that you're working with governments on?
Yeah, this is relatively a new agenda for us at the IDB. We're in the process of defining, of discovering, of testing, how to best support it and accelerate it. But we did define 3 priorities when it comes to supporting the circular economy agenda in Latin America. And one is unlocking investment, both at the public and at the private sector levels. And of course, they're equally important when it comes to circular economy. And I want to emphasize the public sector side, that when you talk about unlocking investment in the public sector level, it is absolutely critical to do it not only at the national level, but also at the subnational and the municipal level. Advancing circular economy in Latin America means changing the way we manage our waste. And just to give you a number, in Latin America, we only recycle less than 5% of the waste we generate. And our solid waste management matrix is still super linear. We generate, we collect, we transport, we dispose, and hopefully we dispose it in a landfill. And I say hopefully because we still dispose almost 30% of our waste in open dumps. So that is why, and here I'm a little, more realistic in a way. When it comes to when you talk to governments across the region, with the exception obviously of countries like Chile or Colombia, most of those talks are about buying trucks or financing the constructions of sanitary landfills. It's not so much about circular economy or circular solutions yet. No, solid waste management in Latin America takes place at the municipal level. So if we really want to increase recycling and advance circular economy models, we must support municipalities and unlock investment at that level. Then the second priority that we have is supporting policy design and implementation. And of course, you can be very creative when it comes to, financial architecture, blended finance, credit guarantees, insurances, million more. But honestly, and Guillermo was talking about that, you need the policies, you need the incentives, you need the signals to actually trigger those investments. And EPR law in Chile and EPR resolutions in Colombia are proving that are good signals and good triggers to unlock this investment in circular economy. And just to close, the third priority that we have is advancing innovation. Circular solutions are typically innovative solutions. Make packaging more recyclable, introduce innovative collection models, new business models, and all this innovation requires risk capital, a type of financing that is risk tolerant. And the venture world in Latin America is practically non-existent, especially at the early stage or angel investor level. No? So that's why institutions like the IDB can fill part of that gap. And we do that through a pretty powerful arm called the IDB Lab. Our business is exactly being risk tolerant. And circular solutions are increasingly part of their portfolio. So that's the way we're basically pushing innovation.
Okay, great. So it's a start. It's great to hear realism in the conversation, because that is exactly the note that we started on, that balance of realism and optimism. And also great to hear that actually it's you mentioned investment at the local level, working with municipalities. It's not just all about the national government level, and we certainly see that in our work. When I was looking up the IDB, I was really struck on the website by the distinct social angle of the mission of the IDB. And actually, circular economy often focuses a lot on the economic benefits and on the environmental benefits. And I think, developing more on the social benefits is this sort of next area. So I'm really interested to hear how the bank's social mission is. How do you try and capture that in the work that you're already doing on circular economy? Because it's such an important part.
Yeah, I mean, the IDB motto is improving lives. So social impact, is embedded in our DNA. It is part of our internal process to discuss, how this project, how this financing is actually changing lives for the better. So circular economy, and you're right, Miranda, sometimes have a bias towards financial and environmental variables or benefits. Yes, but ultimately, when you improve the environment or make a company more profitable, you're also improving lives. And my point is that when it comes to financing decisions at the bank, the social impact doesn't have to be in your face to actually move forward. No, social impact will likely be there, and by benefiting the environment, we are definitely improving lives, which is our motto. No, and basically, maybe one example of something we did, we recently launched the Natural Capital Lab that provides financing to accelerate projects around nature-based solutions and biodiversity. And that's a signal that environmental variables and benefits definitely are a key part of our portfolio. And if we're going to have a new president, and if that changes with the new president, you will have to invite me next year, and I will tell you about it.
Very good, very good. Gonzalo, you wear multiple hats. So you've set up a business called Triciclos, starting in Chile, but now operating across 13 countries. And you were the high-level champion of COP25, which is actually a role you continue now. So I'm going to try and make sure we cover all these things. But from the Triciclos angle, we've just talked about investment and the social side and how you engage people in this. Did public investment, public policy support the growth of Triciclos?
Well, thank you, Miranda. Thank you to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation for the opportunity of touching these topics. Yes, surely, directly and indirectly. First, I would say indirectly, and Guillermo referred to that very properly, just by setting the circular economy into the governmental program. That is a really fundamental message for startups and businesses that are willing to connect the circular economy. As you know, Guillermo's role in the past was supposed to be the waste manager for the country, and it's no longer that. It's circular economy for the country, and that is a message that is so powerful. Of course, it's been built by so many years working on experiences, as he mentioned, until it makes it a reality, but also identifying the entry points. And there's a lot of opportunities on collaboration from the public sector and the private sector, and setting the conditions. For example, everything that has been done around plastic, and especially on plastic bags as an entry point, batteries from cars as another entry point, but also defining this general framework for the national roadmap. I believe that even the plastic packs that were developed initially by the Ellen MacArthur and now spreading around the world are really extraordinary examples on how the governments can set the base for bringing non-state actors, including for the private sector and businesses, all together working towards circular economy. Then when it comes to Chile, the EPR legislation has set a general way to understand that we are here to start valuing the externalities and solving them. And Corfo, in the case of Chile, as a promoting agency from the economics ministry, as also providing different types of support. Now we're seeing how, for example, we are capable of connecting all of that energy and all of that experience on how to implement solutions around learnings related to COVID. We're seeing potential opportunities on how, again, the government can set quite good basis for the private sector to connect even around the learnings of the COVID-19 crisis regarding circular economy to be embedded in so many sectors where it's absolutely needed.
And as you moved around the continent, because you've got experience in multiple jurisdictions, if you're thinking about it from a policy perspective, what did you find was really important to help you scale in terms of the public policy that was there?
Well, as it was also well referred by Adriana, in Latin America, we mostly first connect on circular economy around downstream solutions, right? It's a lot about not only solving very critical problems that we have in our region around dumps or waste being burned or dropped into the ocean or to the water streams, but we also have a reality around rag pickers, street waste pickers, are really concrete reality on one side in terms of a challenge and somehow in some cases a social problem that we need to work on and solve very rapidly, and on the other side have a fundamental opportunity in terms of a lot of people that have been working for decades on collecting waste, and they have such a critical knowledge that we need to use it. They even sometimes don't even know how much they know around not only identifying the different types of materials, but they implement economical solutions for materials, not necessarily understanding what they're doing, sometimes referring to how the value of the materials in terms of economic value changes, or elements regarding to logistics, element regarding to safety, element regarding to identifying problems of design. They have so much knowledge that represents a great opportunity that should connect us to other aspects that Germán and Adriana brought in terms of our cities. Having so much population need to evolve, considering how much it also is there reflecting the inequality of our region. And then I think that there are also very concrete opportunities on energy, on our food systems and nature-built solutions, and very importantly, as Chairman referred to, the financial sector. Let me refer very shortly to a concrete opportunity that we have regarding B Corps. In Latin America is the region where we have the best growth in terms of certified B corporations in the world, and many of them are working around circular economy. That is also an opportunity referring to this energy that the startups are bringing.
Okay, great. And I guess some of the points you touched on there about bringing multiple voices into the development of these things, I guess that's partly reflected in what Guillermo was saying about making sure that as the roadmap develops, multiple voices are at the table. And I know Adriana's working on bringing more of the national governments together in order to support exchange of best practice. So yeah, bringing all the voices and expertise to the table. Ellen herself said this is an innovation agenda and we don't know all the answers yet, so we do need to work together on it. We are so nearly out of time, but I have got to ask you about COP because the connection between circular economy and climate change is increasingly recognised. And actually Chile played an important role in bringing circular economy to the table. So can you tell us about where you would like to see that go in the next COP, as you're still involved in that?
Sure, thank you. And thank you very personally for your involvement. For what we did last year is for the first time to connect the climate agenda and the climate discussion with circular economy. We invited many of you, right, to be there participating in a few events that we had in Madrid. But the idea there was to connect those two topics, for both of them to work very closely, as well with an initiative that was important, when we were bringing sectorial ministers as well to be as part of the discussion, as Adriana also mentioned, as an important element. Now we're seeing, even in this year with COVID-19, how much of the energy transition has accelerated, and that being a relevant part of the circular economy. We see that there's a lot of room for integrating much more. So very concretely, with the Ellen MacArthur, we're working on incorporating circular economy perspective and vision into the 1.5 pathways. We're doing the same thing with Nigel and the Climate Champions team around the system transformation map. So we are willing for that to continue not only towards COP26, but permanently, because we see an opportunity of mainstreaming the same type of discussion around how much circular economy is bringing the right tools and the right solutions for the climate discussion to progress towards the 1.5 degrees.
Okay, great. I'm conscious that we haven't jumped around the panel very much, but I am with this last question. What are the things that you would most like to see happen over the next 5 years in order for circular economy to scale in Latin America? Adriana, can I start with you?
Yeah, thanks. And I think what we want to see is this mainstreaming the solutions that circular economy is offering in the policies. And in this, let me take the opportunity to say we are currently developing a regional coalition on circular economy, for which I'm very pleased to say we're working with the IDB, with Helen MacArthur, with PACE, World Economic Forum, UNIDO, CTCN, Konrad Adenauer, and UNEP. And the idea here, what is very important to say, Miranda, is when we discuss this with countries, they say, yes, we are very interested in developing a common vision for Latin America. What does circular economy means in our regional context? What are the opportunities? And then to develop a platform where they can exchange best practices, where the champion countries can incentivize and share lessons learned with other countries. And then together, as Herman has mentioned, they have a lot of tools, Helen MacArthur as well. We all these 9 institutions solutions. So the idea is to start developing capacity development tools, support more on the design of policy. So our vision is really that we manage to have a common vision and a regional agenda that will help countries as well to achieve the Paris agreements and the SDGs. And with this, just let me say one thing, I will not stop, very short, just to highlight what Gonzalo is saying. We did a study with the International Resource Panel looking at manufacturing. If we invest in remanufacturing, refurnishment, we can reduce by 80 to 95% the greenhouse emissions. So it's a win-win solution here, just to say there are economic, social, and environmental
Great.
gains.
So a vision for circular economy in Latin America and connection to SDGs in Paris. Guillermo, what's your priority going forward?
Well, when you look at the next 5 years, what you see is that we need to see two things happening. First, you cannot really do isolated actions with regards to the circular economy. You really need to take this holistic view, which is what we've seen many countries doing and which is what we are doing right now. And in that sense, what I envision for all the countries in Latin America is that they have this more holistic, comprehensive strategies or roadmaps that they can that can take them to the next step. And in that sense, platforms like the regional platform that Adriana just mentioned are going to be key, right? And secondly, we need to move to action, right? Because one thing is to have a strategy, and the other thing is to implement it. And there, again, the UN and the IDB will be key in leading this this transformation into reality, into real action, right? We need a lot of things happening from the public sector, also from the private sector, and from civil society, for instance, as well, right? And we need to think strategically. We know we're going to be in this in the post-COVID world. We're going to be very constrained in terms of national budgets, and in that sense, we need to be very strategic to see how we actually move to action in the different countries once we have this strategic plans or roadmaps.
Okay, great. So we've got strategy with action. The IDB is just being given a large role in that. Herman, what are you going to be doing for the next 5 years to bring it to scale?
So I think first it's important to increase awareness throughout the supply chain and with all the stakeholders about the need and importance of transitioning towards circularity. Second, I think we would like to, support a policy environment that facilitates that transition, and this is something it's part of our DNA as well. Supporting that policy design and implementation. I think with those signals, with that policy environment, circular projects will be more financially feasible. That's a very huge challenge that we have in the region. It's not only about willingness to transition, but we do need to find these financially feasible projects. And for that, very likely you need the policy environment. No? And I think with that, basically we will have a region with less waste, with more recycling rates or higher recycling rates, and a more circular region, and stop, managing our waste from this linear model of generation, collection, and disposing. No, so that's what we are going to be working on.
Okay, great. And that implementation point, actually, it often gets forgotten for not touched on so much in policy discussions, but actually it's a really important part of it as well. All right, Gonzalo, take us out. What are you going to be focusing on? Perhaps you choose your COP hat to answer this question.
Sure, and of course, adding to what have just been said, I would like to incorporate one or two elements: water and soil. There is a relevant opportunity and a need for a region to really embrace regenerative agriculture. Those are the elements that have a strong capacity to leverage the full potential of a region in relation to its natural capital. We are in a region that has such an amazing and beautiful diversity. You mentioned that, but it's not only about biological diversity, it's about ethnical, cultural, geographical diversity. So in order to understand the full potential of the region in terms of circular economy, of course, we have to do the things that were mentioned. We have to take the position in this energy transition that we're seeing for this decade, and somehow try to replicate the energy transition towards a nature-based solution transition that will position Latin America in the place where it should be in the future as well.
Okay, great. And that point about bringing the circular economy alongside the energy transition, I mean, that would be great if we can see that happening through the COP process. And we have a bit more time this year because it's delayed by a year. So on that note, thank you so much for joining us. And that's pretty much it now for today. If you want to hear more from the realm of policy, do check out videos from Nicholas Stern on investing in the circular economy for low carbon purposes, Mariana Mazzucato on entrepreneurialism in policymaking, and David Nabarro on the connection between health and the economy. And for tomorrow, tune in to tomorrow's laser sessions that cover everything from design to learning, and for the final headliner that will dive into circular economy by topic, so looking at plastic, fashion, food and finance, all of which we've just had tasters of today. So thank you for joining us, and wherever you are, good night, good day and good morning.